Hello and welcome to my review of the Wltoys v666 quadcopter. Now as you can see, I've modified mine slightly, so it's not a out-of-the-box review. I've made the changes which I thought was necessary to get more fun out of this quad. So the first thing to do is remove the foam protectors off. These weigh quite a lot, and they do affect the characteristics of the quad, and obviously the flight time as well. That's completely up to you. I think it looks more of a quadcopter than it does with the very unique foam protectors there. So I've taken that off. Now also, this isn't a completely full review because my quad turned up with a defect on the camera module, the FPV module. This module is supposed to be used for recording as well as FPV, but mine turned up and for some reason it keeps switching off in the recording option. Now Banggood have sent me or are sending me a new module to give that a try to see if that's the problem. Otherwise it's a problem with the flight controller. But there's another video on my channel showing that after about 3 minutes of use it just switches off, the recording switches off. So it doesn't really matter for me actually, because I never planned on using that function. Of course you want that function to work, but this is what I had actually planned for this quad all along, and that is attaching a Mobius camera underneath, because the quality of this, it's about the same as an 808-16. Well, of course, this can easily carry the Mobius, so I wanted to find a way to attach this, and I've done a lot of experimenting and found that this is the best way. Of course, adding a Mobius to the bottom here makes the Mobius protrude slightly underneath these standard legs. So what I've done is I ordered some DJI, I think they're the 550 or 450 legs. You can get them for about £4 anyway, and they really easily cable tie to the arms here and also to the legs. I'm not sure what the extra weight is, but it's really worth it because the flight time on this thing is pretty good actually. Another thing that I have done on this, which a few other people are doing, but the only reason I've done this is because my module doesn't work, so I thought I've got nothing to lose, I'll give it a try, and I was able to find some cool stuff out actually. So a lot of people have been modifying the lens. They've been unscrewing the standard lens, cutting out a deeper hole in the camera front and screwing in the 808 lens, which I have done here. Now something that I was able to find out is, when I was playing around with this after I knew that I was getting a new one, my camera module failed, which is quite, it's something that I'm used to happening actually, because this isn't my first quadcopter where I've been messing around with the 808 lens, and so yeah, this failed. So I got a spare one of these complete modules from an 808. It was just a spare that I got in because they're relatively cheap, about £7. I fitted the entire 808 module in it, powered it up, and it worked. It's an exact copy, or exactly the same part as you get on the 808-16 camera. Of course then, that opens it up to the wide angle field of view and all the sort of benefits. Much better, much easier for FPV, and as others have shown, it makes the recording better as well. The only problem is with the wide angle lens is you get the legs in shot there, which, you know, it depends what your sort of attitude towards that is. I'm not too bothered. At first I was bothered. I didn't want any of the legs in shot, even with FPV, but it doesn't make much of a difference there. So yeah, it's a positive, but it's also a negative as well, because I've got quite a lot of experience with the 808 camera, and one thing that I know about the 808 camera is that this is very weak. The ribbon's very weak. It doesn't like to be moved. In fact, if you look at the 808-16 camera, it's all very compact. It's all it can't move within its case, and it's designed like that because if it moves around, eventually you start to get really strange colours on the screen. Anyone that's had an 808-16 and messed around with it will know if you've detached the lens, eventually it fails, so this sort of angle here that you can switch the angle of, that's not really a good idea in my opinion, because it doesn't like to be moved and it eventually will fail. So anyone that's got one of these, who's bought one of these, I really wouldn't advise on moving this at all. In fact, I'm really tempted, now that I've got it working, to hot glue this in place so it doesn't move, because the more movement it has, the more it's going to fail. However, you can use the 808/16 module in its entirety to go in there, so that's a positive. So it's kind of got a negative and a positive there. Now, I've literally just attached the Mobius underneath here. I've used some Velcro and a rubber band. Now that works, right, but it only works in calm weather, and I would really only recommend trying to get good video from this in calm weather with a Mobius, because what happens is when it's windy, this whole thing here shakes and rocks like that. The wind blows it. I tried adding some foam here because the way that the screws attach here, there is some contact there, and that's what was happening. So I put some foam under here, and also tried some rubber grommets as well. But then I started getting jello from the Mobius camera. You'll notice as well I've not got the wide angle Mobius here. That's because if you use the wide angle, you do get the legs in shot. If you don't use the wide angle, you don't get the legs in shot, and you don't get the propellers in shot either. And the standard Mobius lens is quite wide. It is comparable to the earlier GoPros. You get a really nice image from it, which I will show you later. Something else that I was able to do as well, the jury's still out on this, but I've installed the cloverleaf antenna for the 5.8. And because of the legs, I'm able to point it down. I've not actually tried that yet. What I was doing was I was flying this in the up position, and I was getting so much interference, more so than with the standard dipole antennas. But I'm going to try again flying it with it down, because I think what was happening, well, I'm hoping what was happening, is because the cloverleaf was up here, when the quad got above me, the whole quad was blocking the signal. And anyone who knows about 5.8 frequencies, it doesn't penetrate well through objects. So I'm hoping that pointing this down and also having this up here will get a clearer image. Now, this is the strange thing about this quad, because it is toy grade. It's very cheap actually, that's why I went for it. It's probably the cheapest all-in-one full size, because I think this is 350 size, which is, you know, a full size quadcopter, I suppose, on par with the size of the DJI Phantom and things like that. So yeah, it is full size, but it is toy grade. Now, what I find interesting is there is some very toy qualities to this, but there's also premium qualities as well. I mean, for example, it's all in one FPV system. It records. I guess some of it has to be toy grade to be able to have the price so low. However, what really is interesting is that we have these SMA connectors here, which is definitely a hobby grade feature. You know, if you were looking at an all-in-one solution, for example, if you take the Hubsan Spyhawk, there's no SMA connectors here. So I mean, that's really good that standard you do have that. And the transmitter as well, I was quite surprised about, because on all videos and pictures, the transmitter really does look premium, and it's got some great features that I think every transmitter should have. On the other hand, when you receive it, you can see that it really is cheap quality, toy grade. This on videos looks like it's metal. It's not. It's some kind of molded plastic. Very cheap, and it appears very cheap. Although the sticks do feel nice. There's nice resolution there. So again, it's sort of a strange mix between toy grade and hobby grade. Another thing that I think should be on all transmitters, and it might just be my opinion, but I don't think there's any excuse for this, really, is that it's got the fantastic mode switch option, and it actually switches it inside the program as well. I think you have to have the transmitter switched off, but I'll just show you. There's lots of videos of people showing this. So if you flick that, then the throttle becomes on the other side, and it automatically switches modes, which is brilliant for me because I fly mode 1, one of the rare mode 1 flyers that there are these days. I think a lot of people have converted to mode 2, especially for helicopters. I know some people who have flew mode 1, sort of fly mode 1 for planes, mode 2 for helicopters, but obviously everyone's different there. So, to me, that is a really premium sort of, feature to me. I've not seen that on any other transmitter, but it's really cheap feeling. Maybe that was the compromise to get the price down, I don't know, but that's something I really like about this. So obviously you get this screen, and it comes with the screen protector as well. There's no channel selector on this. I've opened this up actually, and it's all built in. You could probably change the LiPo, but not really much else you can change on there. You've got a little USB charger on there, which I'm finding is fine. Just have to make sure that the battery is charged. I was flying around with this, and the screen went completely white, and I thought I'd got a problem, maybe a defect with the TX, but it was actually the fact that the battery had run out on this. So yeah, make sure that the battery is fully charged in this, and you should get a decent amount of time off it. So this is sort of the other unique feature of this. You've got an inlet there, and this kind of grasps onto a kind of dowel, a plastic dowel inside, and it does its job. I mean, it's a little bit flimsy, but what do you expect for the price? And another thing I was disappointed about the transmitter as well, and you'll see on the video that I've done, is the range on this is really poor. I took the transmitter apart, and this antenna up here is fake. I mean, yeah, I can't show you on this video, but if you look here, there's supposed to be a coax cable going up here. If it was a proper antenna, it's not, and when you take it apart, the antenna is just a very flimsy tiny bit of coax, the smallest I've ever seen. It sort of just sticks into the end of here. So that's a modification that I'm going to try. I'm going to try and add an SMA connector, because the range is really poor on this, despite the fact that they have taken a coax here on the receiver and spread it up to the arm. When I was flying away from me, I wasn't even getting 100 meters range, so be very careful with this. And I don't think the problem is this, because you've got a nice coax antenna here, but the range is less than one of the Hubsan mini quadcopters. I can get further with the mini Hubsan quadcopter, which has a PCB trace antenna on it, so something's not quite right there. I have bought another one of these transmitters, and I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to add an SMA connector and maybe try it with an extended aerial, but also try it with a Wi-Fi booster as well, because the range on this is really not up to scratch. Again, it's kind of like a toy grade feature. I think I would have appreciated further range and maybe spending less money elsewhere, but what can I say? I wasn't involved in the budgeting of this, and it's really still is a good deal. So just a couple of features on the transmitter. I won't turn it on, but it is backlit, which is quite nice. You've got to record the camera, although the feature doesn't work on mine. You press this and it starts and stops recording, and it does show you the start and stop recording on here as well, and also how long that you've got left to record. Like I say, I've not been able to use that feature. You can turn the lights off, which is really nice as well. Maybe conserve a bit of battery, but also if you're doing some night flying FPV, which I plan to do, it's really good that you can turn the lights off, be a bit more stealth, and maybe scare less people. Yeah, but you can take a photo. Then this, I had a little bit of problems with as well. I think it turns out the way that I was using it, but this is the flip button, right? You press it, and it beeps, and then whichever way that you flip the stick, the quad will do a flip. But what I was doing while I was flying it, I put it into flip button, and I just did that very quickly, and it stayed in flip mode, and the thing then, anytime I controlled it, kept flipping. You still, in flip mode, you still do have very slight controls, but so I managed to get out of it, but it just kept flipping. And what I've learned you need to do is to flip the stick and then let go, and when it centers, that harsh center, it turns the flip mode off. But if you just go like that, then the flip mode stays on, and it kept flipping. That was what I found anyways. Now, so from a battery perspective, it comes with this standard battery. I think, let's see, it's 1200 milliamp, which you do get about 8 to 10 minutes flight. It's really respectable. But what I did was, I saw that you could get this battery on Banggood. It's 2800 milliamp. I wouldn't recommend getting this. It's too heavy. You will get a longer flight time, but the props stall with it. It's too heavy for the setup, at least. Anyways, the idea is that you strap this on somewhere. It's too much, but you know, it's kind of a bit of a waste of money. I have bought, they do a 2000 milliamp battery, which I'm going to try, but of course any of these batteries other than the standard ones don't fit in the standard battery part. If you're wondering as well, when I've screwed all this back together, I fitted it on the wrong way, but it still reaches all the battery compartments, so I didn't want to take it all apart again. Yeah, one thing that I've missed actually, if you want to take the foam thing off, then you have to turn it upside down. You have to take you have to undo these two screws. You've got two screws there. All that has to come off. Then you've got some like attachments here with screws in. They have to unscrew, and then you can pull off the foam, which I'd recommend doing because that's sort of aimed at the beginners, really, and I don't think this is a beginner's quad. If you are a beginner, then you need to get into micro quads. You need to go to the Hubs and X4, learn how to fly them, crash them, because when you crash this thing, it could do a lot more damage. Alright, it's not a fully blown brushless motor quad, but still, if this hit someone and you didn't know what you were doing, even with the foam protectors on, they're not that great. Then, you know, I wouldn't suggest this as a first quad. I wouldn't suggest any quad this size as a first quad. Get your micros, or, you know, get a simulator, join a club, get someone to train you. That's what I did. I was in a club for years, and I got on a buddy box, and I learned how to fly planes and stuff. I want to promote doing that, because there's a lot of stuff in the news lately, people just buying these and crashing them. They're expensive, they're a lot of fun, but they're also dangerous as well. You know, so that's my opinion, really. Another sort of thing, a lot of people have talked about the motors. A lot of people are modifying the motors. They're taking the screws out here and removing these motor covers to get a bit more air, and a few people are putting heat sinks on. And what a heat sink does is it takes the heat generated from the motor, because these are brush motors, so generating a lot of heat. Brush motors means that you can get they can wear out, and people are saying that these motors do wear out. They're getting less than 20 flights. I've had about 20 flights so far, and I don't know if it's because I've removed the foam covers. I've not been doing many flips. I don't know. But I've not had a problem so far. I have bought a spare set of motors because I'm quite handy with a soldering iron. So the motors are really cheap. They're like £2 each. So, you know, as compared to, I don't know, say a £15, maybe even more expensive brushed motor. This is my brushless motor, sorry. This is my first big size quad, and I'm really happy with it. It's so stable. I'll show you some footage that I took in a moment. I say that the only problem that I've had with it really is the range. You can't let it go out of range. The video range goes further than the control range. Something's wrong there, and maybe in a future video I'll show you where I've modified this. But yeah, first impressions and flight, really good. I did try and add a gimbal to this. I bought the Banggood gimbal, and I'll show some footage of that as well, because it was quite hilarious. With these legs, the gimbal actually did fit on, and I was able to use a Y connector to power it, but don't try it, guys. Gimbals are too heavy for it. It lifted for about 15 seconds, and then the weight and the extra voltage or whatever just bogged it down. You know, I'm just going to end up damaging my motors if I try to pursue that any further. Well, what was great though is that the gimbal did actually work for the 5 seconds of flight that I got out of it. It was quite funny to try, but yeah, this isn't a gimbal quad. However, it flies so stable, especially if you use like the low rates, because you know, I've actually, sorry, this button here, sorry, it clicks through the rate. You've got 40% rate. 60%, 80 and 100. If you keep it in 40% rates and it's a calm day, you can get such stable video footage out of it. Sometimes it even looks like it's on a gimbal, and you know, if the weather's calm, this vibration isolator really works well compared to a quad like the Real Flying 3D X6, which has nothing like this. I was getting a huge amount of Jallo on that compared to this, but that's it really. I think I've covered everything there, and let's check some flight footage. So we have a really snowy day here today. Had a bit of a bumpy takeoff here, but we're getting really nice smooth video. It's quite a nice day for flying actually. Some nice exposure from the snow here, and really smooth between the houses here. It does get a bit more rough when I go out onto the field, but you can see we can get some really nice video shots here. So to bind the quad, you can either plug the turn the transmitter on first, or the quad. Doesn't really make a difference. The quad will start flashing really fast until it binds with the quad, and then the quad will it will flash quite slowly, but you won't have any control. Bit of a safety feature there. You have to arm it, and you do that by lifting the throttle up and down. Quite a simple way to arm it, but the props don't start like some other quads. I don't like that feature when you arm a quad and the props start. I much prefer to have no throttle at all, and then be able to control when the props start yourself, like this one. Now, I wasn't really sure here sort of what I could get away with the range, so I didn't take it up too high. But you could see a really nice, smooth and Jallo free. I mean, we're looking straight into the sun there, and that's where Jallo is at its worst, when we've got the highest amount of light coming into the camera. So the vibration isolator doing well there. It's a little bit shaky flying around and descending, but that's just me flying line of sight. I was flying line of sight. Anytime I go up high here, I was flying line of sight, and anytime I'm low, I'm flying FPV. So we got some nice low shots here flying FPV. Really nice detail here in the camera. The only sort of jerkiness here was me on the sticks, really. If you fly with really careful stick inputs, you can get some really smooth shots, but I didn't do that. I need to get better at that really for flying FPV. But some really nice shots here from the Mobius. You can see there we've not got any of the legs in the shot, which I really like. None of the blades in shot either. Lovely shot of the sun as we fly around. It's a little bit jerky, but this is what you need to expect from a quad that doesn't have a gimbal. You know, I mean, you know, you'll get as good a shots though as you would get with a mini quad with this, which is really good because mini quads are quite expensive. Obviously, you haven't got the speed, but the fact that this is so docile, and it's a little bit it takes a little while for it to center the auto level, and in that sense it kind of acts as its own gimbal in comparison to a brushless quad, which is very sensitive. Now look at this, it's really smooth. This is about as high as I dare to go with it, and then I cut off the throttle there. Again, doing line of sight. Really should have looked at the FPV screen, because when it descends you get this horrible sort of jerk as the auto levels kind of fights the descent. Same with any quad that's got auto leveling switched on, really. So I just need to have more practice. Unfortunately, we don't have many hours of light this time of the year. Only a couple of hours of light in the afternoon before it goes dark, so this is the only flight that I was able to do. It would be nice to have a slightly wider angle, I think, but I think we're so used to seeing wide angles on quads. It was kind of refreshing when I put this camera on. What you don't get a sense of is actually, with the narrower field of view from the Mobius, you don't get the sort of the distance that I was travelling. And here, that's where I went out of range and the quad flipped upside down. It was when the quad was facing away from me. The quad carried on hovering, but I had no response at all from the throttle. It was really strange, and Well, I was really disappointed, really, considering I can fly my Hubsan X4, which, you know, will fit in the palm of your hand, and is cheaper than this, and it didn't have the same range at all. What was good about it, though, is it flipped upside down, it landed on the props, absolutely no damage whatsoever, and was able to just take off again, no problem. So, you know, even though it looks quite brittle, even without the foam protectors, it is still quite durable, even though I've attached a little bit more weight to it with those legs. I'm really happy with this, just need to sort out the range problem. Of course, if you are buying this as kind of like your first quad, you know, I don't think you're going to be expecting to get too much range out of it. However, I would have liked a little bit more than sort of a 100 meters, really. You know, these brushless quads, they can get up to 800 meters, you know, and the 2.4 sort of technology of it isn't the most expensive part, so they really seem to have scrimped here, I think. And I think the V262, which is basically, it's the same quad, this is the V262 with extra features added to it. That was also known for the bad range. Like I mentioned before, they have attached a coax on the RX, so it's really surprising here that we don't get much range out of it. I think this was the furthest that I went just in this particular shot, maybe. Really nice, smooth footage. Some of it could be confused to being a gimbal. Again, that's down to the docile nature of the quad, but I think when I turned round here, actually, no, it wasn't this particular time. I was just doing some circuits here, and you can see there I'm looking down at the monitor, flying complete an FPV here. Really, really nice experience, the FPV experience, especially with that 808 module on it. Not so much without the 808 module. It's quite difficult to get a sense of depth and distance with it, but with the 808 module, it's really nice and comfortable to fly FPV. So yeah, the Mobius doesn't show as much depth as the 808, but it's enough. I am really happy with this footage, and it's really nice. We'll look with the snow this time of year, and I think this is the point where I lost range. It's fine here. I turn around to face me. Probably fifth, and there I've lost control. It's flying off, and then it regains control. I've come used to not panicking, because if it's coming towards you, it seems to go out of range not when it's going away from you. It's when you turn back around and come towards you. So I think LVC kicked in about here, and the LVC warning is terrible with this quad, by the way. Some people are using low voltage checkers and things like that, because literally your LVC will kick in and a quad will drop. But there you go, that's my review of the v666. I think it is good. I don't think you should just go out and buy one if you've never flown a quad before. Just my opinion. They are cheap, so people will go and do that. But I would say learn these mini quads inside first, and then outside, and then progress to a quad like this. Okay, that's my review. Cheers for watching.